Hi everyone, welcome. So, what a great time of year. And I say that just because I mean, it's always a great time of year to go birding. But it's springtime. So that means that Canada's birds have to come back through here. Our summer birds will be will be returning. And look at all the bright colors. So many of these birds, the last time they migrated to our area, they were in their dull autumn coloration. So, just getting out is a wonderful at this time of year. And not that it is, we talked about waterfowl last time, but just if some videos I put up from um, the past couple weeks of going out. The ducks have certainly been migrating through, and um, the songbirds are coming. So I'm sorry, I made too many videos for this. All right, but if we were looking, look at the ringneck ducks. They've been coming through. Look, we could see the different colors there, the buffleheads, the common mergansers. In fact, there are common mergansers which have been on the pond just down the road. Um, for about a week now. It's just absolutely wonderful. And look at the bright colors. In fall, all of these will look the same. But here you can see that the males have this stark coloration. So spring is the time of courtship. Spring is the time for mating, because these birds, they're on a timeline. I mean, the bald eagles, they should be sitting on eggs now because, when their eggs, which are like this big, when they hatch, they get baby eaglets. Those eaglets have to have a 6 to 7 foot wingspan by June. When birds fledge, they are full size, and that's true of most birds. Like we spend decades growing up as teenagers and slowly getting bigger. Not so if you're going to have a full-grown bird by the time to be ready to migrate south, the swans that just came to 6.5 station last week, their young have to be able to fly come August and September, and these are big birds. So that's a lot of growth. They can't have like their children this year, then their teenagers. No, they're adult size muscle mass. So this is the time to court. This is the time to lay eggs. So given that not only is this important for birds, but this is also when they're most colorful, I thought it'd be fun to give a new talk on bird love. And I was inspired by that because anyone wants to read it. There was a book that was just all about courtship and birds titled Bird Love. And I've read this book and I'm like, there are just so many fun details. So I thought, let's get into that. I always begin with this next slide, which I swear I pulled up a second ago. Um, so if you're interested in wildlife, or you're interested in birds, this is such an amazing place to live. And there are so many great organizations, whether it be the Orange County Audubon. And forgive me, I'm just going to sometimes mute. There's just some background. Thank you. There's the Bashigal Area Association. There's a spring waterfall walk there this coming Saturday. I'm giving a hike there and a kayak ride the following Sunday. The Orange County Audubon, I'm giving a hike there the first Tuesday of April. Meek has just, they do a lot of activities always. There's the Sullivan County Audubon, the Edgar Mearns Bird Club, the Friends of Shawangunk Grasslands, the Friends of the Wallkill River, the Gifford Pinchot Audubon Society. There's just so many great organizations to highlight this wildlife. So if you're looking to get out and see some of these, I know I lead hikes. Audubon puts out a newsletter, and if you're a member of Audubon, you should be getting this newsletter soon. I swear I just had it up. There we go. Yeah, so here's the newsletter, which should be coming to you, the April, with all of these cool birds that we've been seeing, so you can see your identification skills. But these are all that have been seen in our area in the past 4 weeks. And so, as spring comes, there will be more and more. And if you'd like a newsletter about all of these things that you can see in our area, then contact Orange County Audubon. You'll get put on the mailing list for this. There's upcoming talks and walks, etc. So just such a wonderful place to be. But to now focus on bird love. Uh, Birds are unusual among the vertebrates. I mean, and mammals were the same way. We always have to have sex. But that's not always true. Not all flowers have sex. Not all microbes have sex. In fact, there are fish that don't have sex. There are snakes that don't have sex. There are salamanders that don't have sex. Lizards that don't have sex. All you have are females which clone themselves. All right. It is possible for lots of organisms to reproduce without sexual reproduction. In fact, even vertebrates can do that, but no bird does. So if birds are going to reproduce, there have to be two individuals. Problem number one, in a world that looks like this, how do you find your partner when there are so many birds out there? Well, colors can certainly help, but some of these colors are monomorphic. So if you look at all of these birds, the males and the females look the same. So colors are helping the birds reproduce. But the primary help here would be to identify species that you say, aha, you know you're not this type of eagle, you're that type of eagle. You're not this type of wren, you're that type of wren. Because I always use this joke, so I apologize for those of you who know me, like you've heard this joke a million times. But a couple 100,000 years ago, there were multiple species of human alive. And if you wanted to date, you could have found someone who was human, but not your species of human, and maybe your kids wouldn't have turned out. So there would have been wrong choices. But now, let's say, you attend a bird love talk and you're so inspired that, you take someone out to dinner afterwards or whatever. Do you ever have to like pause and say, wait a minute, is this a member of my species? Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've heard some wild party stories, so good for you. Good for you. Um, for most of us, no, because if
You do it.
yeah, yeah, sometimes. But if someone looks human, they probably are. Uh, but there are so many little brown sparrows, there are so many sandpipers, there are so many hawks, etc. That's not always the same species. And if you try to reproduce with this individual, they might not turn out. So color is certainly useful. It can say, you're my group. All right. And if you're looking to not waste your reproductive energy or with an individual when you couldn't have kids, like this is certainly colorful. In fact, this I showed this last week. Um, so because from 2 weeks ago, I was in Goshen and there were 10 species of waterfowl on this little wetland. And it's not, it's a small wetland. It's not huge or anything, but 10 species. So if you're trying to have sex or trying to pick a partner on this wetland, there's a lot of bad choices that aren't your species. You can't have kids. So how do you know? Well, that's one of the things that color can do. So color can help you pick your species. But I want to go beyond that and now ask, all right, well, so now you find a member of your species. What next? What type of a relationship will you pursue? Well, 90% of birds are monogamous. So I'd like to start off by talking about monogamy. I do want to stress this. There's going to be a slow talk. Like, so there isn't like this one point we keep on going. What do we mean by monogamy? Monogamy means that divorce is rare. Okay. Fidelity is different from divorce. All right. We'll get to fidelity, but right now we're talking about divorce. So birds will typically pair up and divorce is unusual once you form a pair. Now, by that I mean some of the pairs are for life. Some of the pairs are not for life, but multiple years. Many of the pairs are only for a season. So you have a partner this season, all right, but next season it'll probably be something else. But all monogamy fits all of those scenarios. So monogamy is, and very often they use the quote, socially monogamous. So, I'm going to try to speak about birds and stick to birds. If you want to make occasional, references to other organisms or your own personal life, by all means. All right. But the term here in this book, starts off with it like socially monogamous. Like, so, you could go to a human society event and there's a whole bunch of people who are socially a couple. All right. What happens in private might be different. All right. But socially, they present that they're together here. And birds do that. These are a couple, these are a couple, these are a couple. All right. But what monogamy means is these will probably remain with each other for life. These ducks will probably be with each other for multiple seasons, but this is just for these 3 months, and then they may never see each other again. And that being said, Extra pair paternity or extra pair coupling. What I'll show is I'll use the term EPC. What that means is before genetic analysis, we used to say, oh, they pair for life or they're pair like, isn't that wonderful? And then you look at the chicks and you say, wait, they don't all have the same father. So yes, you're a couple. Yes, this is monogamous. But there is also extra pair coupling that is common. So in 3/4 of monogamous birds, all right, there's more to it than that. So we'll kind of deal with this, et cetera. So for example, if you were to look at mallards and say, oh, look, here's the nest of the mallards. This was the male parent, here was the female parent. You realize, maybe 1/4 of those young mallards had a different father. All right. And so there's more going on to it, but just as a starting off point, monogamy is the standard in birds. So there will be two individuals who pair where they're a couple for um, this season. So we then ask the question, why are so many birds monogamous and what favors that? What would make, I'm arguing for monogamy and I do want to try to stress, I'm talking about birds. Okay. So as you leave here in an hour, feel free to extrapolate or like do anything you want. All right. But like, I'm just making comments on birds and not trying to say anything here. So monogamy is really great when one parent alone cannot produce enough food for that chick. All right. So sometimes it just takes two parents. Sometimes you need someone with the offspring because there are nest predators. All right. Lots of things love to eat baby birds. Lots of things like to eat eggs. You eat eggs. You're not the only one who eats eggs. There are snakes that eat eggs. There are birds that eat eggs. There are bobcats, there are raccoons, there are skunks that eat eggs. There's all of these things that love eggs and love baby birds. Not just birds of prey. All right, but herons, gulls, crows, blue jays, all sorts of woodpeckers can prey on baby birds. So having an adult to defend is important. And like I said, by the time they fledges, they develop the flight feathers and now they can fly and leave the nest. They are full size. All right. I had 20 years to get to my full size, give or take, as did you. They've got a month or 2 or 3, and that's a whole lot of growth. And sometimes one parent can't defend the nest and capture that many bugs or worms or berries or whatever to feed them. And so in that case, you need two parents. So that favors monogamy. You're going to have a two-parent system when it's just not likely that one parent alone, especially larger, longer-lived birds whose chicks take more time to fledge and require to, like the eagles, the swans, which we'll see. Big birds, one parent would really struggle to provide enough for a baby eagle, which is going to get a 6 to 7 foot wingspan by June. Eggs hatch in March, maybe even early April. By June, they're huge. That's a lot of food. That's a lot for one parent to give. Same with these swans. All right, these swans, they're going to have a 4 to 5 foot wingspan. All right, so all of these birds, they're born rather helpless. So here is one bird sitting on the nest while another is bringing food. All right, so that helps the situation of monogamy. So if we're going to argue for monogamy, that is one of the arguments. There are others. Okay, so it has been noticed that certain things just work out better if you know your partner. That if you were to measure partners which have been together for years, they're more efficient. All right, because they've done this for a while. They've learned that they can parent better together as a result of their experience. In courtship gets better. There's a bunch of birds that have really elaborate courtship rituals like sandhill cranes. And you just notice they get better at this and working together as a team the more time that they spend together. You can reinforce monogamy. So if you ask, what couples are likely to stay together? Once again, I'm trying to speak about birds. Birds do talk to each other. And so vocal communication between the two partners seems to enhance. Mutual preening. All right, they can stroke each other's bills or so, the more mutual preening, that seems to reinforce monogamy. And If preening levels decrease, then divorce might be more common where birds which were partnered up with someone, they then separate. So monogamy is the major way that birds get in relationships, and there are things which favor that. Um, there are other ways. So there's what's known as polygyny and polyandry. So if you are a male, instead of being monogamous and having one female partner, you could have multiple female partners. And about 2% of birds, that's the main way that they reproduce. If you're a female, you could have more than one male partner. All right. Like the males are faithful to you, but you're now going to have multiple male partners. About 1% of birds do that. So monogamy, really big. But there are a couple other forms. So let's just kind of discuss those for a second. And let's just pick, if you're going to deal with polygyny, one of the great examples would be red-winged blackbirds. Okay. So how many partners does this male red-winged blackbird have? Probably a lot. All right. Two happens, five is common. I think 15 is the maximum that has been noted. All right. So the deal is the male is going to defend the territory. And I'm going to shout out because once again, I'm trying not to, be judgmental. So a lot of you may have relationship, memories. A lot of you may have issues with parenting and have you have in your mind, this is the way to parent. This isn't the way to parent. You know what? I have another, because this is the first time I'm giving this talk. I'm sure I'm going to say, I want to show you this video and have to go find it. That was starlings. I want to talk about red-winged blackbirds. So same thing. All right, so let's just use mobbing. Should pop up. There you go. So these are red-winged blackbirds mobbing a red-shouldered hawk. So if you're in the woods, you can hide in. Sorry. You can hide in the trees and nobody can see you. If you're in a marsh, like all these reeds, it's hard to see you when you're looking this way. But if you fly over, your nests are really obvious and your eggs and your young are really obvious. So if you want to have any kids whatsoever, you have to stop predators from flying overhead because your kids are just sitting. All right. So these, if you see a big bird flying overhead, a lot of little birds will attack it. Even if it's a bald eagle, look at that huge bird being attacked by these little kingbirds. Or I have an osprey in here. Or this was taken in Goshen. Here are red-winged blackbirds chasing a red-shouldered hawk. So this is a predator that's bigger than them. And they see a predator and they're like, I'm going after it. And they will harass it until it leaves. But obviously there's some risk there. Like I'm not sure the last time you went after a predator that was like 2 or 3 times your size or more. But so the males, they're defending the area. Like if the eggs hatch and the chicks are raised, it's in part because the males are, to some degree, risking their lives, going after predators much bigger than them. So let's say this male red-winged blackbird is defending a territory. Inside this territory, there's food. It can bring food to the young. And females then go into this male's territory and they're his partner. He has multiple females, but they're partnering primarily with him, although I'll qualify that. And they choose that. So females choose, here's a male with a nice territory, may have other females, but it's a nice territory. There's a single male over there with a lousy territory. The females made the choice to be in this polygynous relationship. So red-winged blackbirds, this is something that they choose, and that would be described as their primary form of reproduction. Well, how about these guys? Well, they are primarily monogamous. But if there's a good territory, females would be the same way. So females might say, I would prefer this male, and I'm sure a lot of you already know, this is a gray ghost. That's the term we use for male harrier hawks because they have this gray color. The females are brown. So that's a male. Females would choose a male with a good territory and to be one of several partners of this rather than a male with a bad territory. That's not the most common scenario, but it's common. So if we're looking at monogamy, harrier hawks are monogamous, but polygyny is common. All right. And so the next couple of birds, the same thing would apply. Wrens are like that. All right, here are marsh wrens are like that, house wrens are like that, yellow warblers are that. Now, the males are defending a territory, the males will help raise the young, but if it's a really great place, then there will be multiple females there. And I struggle with this, but like maybe because we value relationships, we think first of relationships. And you say, like, oh, these birds are together in the territory where they were last year. It might be that the females are coming for the territory. The females may not be coming for a male partner. Like this is a great place to raise eggs. All right. And so that's what the females came back for. You might say, oh, these two, they migrated, apart, they've come back together. Once again, the female's coming back to where she was born. All right. And the male just happens to be there too. If he wasn't, she would mate with someone else. All right. So there's fidelity going on, but for a female, the fidelity might actually be for a really good place to raise your young rather than a partner. All right. So that's polygyny. And even if it's not the major form of a mating system that a species has, that there are species where it's common enough that, it's monogamy with an asterisk. Polyandry is a little less common as a standard, like this is the major way that species reproduce, only about 1% of birds, but it happens a lot, like in spotted sandpipers, and then also, a lot of these, sandpipery birds, like the yellowlegs, the least sandpipers, and some of the other peeps. So what this means is there will be males which mate with her and with no one else, but then she can mate with other males. Sometimes she'll mate with multiples at the same time and like put an egg in this nest, an egg at that nest, an egg at that nest. But sometimes it will be serial where like she'll lay eggs with this male, the eggs will hatch, the young will raise, and then she'll then be with another male in a season. Why this, this is a little outside the norm of what we typically see in birds. Well, these birds are also a little more unusual in that it will be the males that do most, if not all, of the incubation, and most, if not all, of the child rearing. All right. So, in the same way that, like, a duck may be free to a male duck to start a second relationship because the female is taking care of the young and burdened with that. In the same way, it's the male sandpipers or yellowlegs which are caring for the young, which may then free the female to take a second partner. And here's just an example of that. So this is, this isn't a tangent. Uh, in July, you might see this in Goshen. You're like, all these least sandpipers. You might see greater yellowlegs. I think they're coming up. Yeah, they'll be in the next video. And you might say, wait, why are they here in July? I'm waiting for them in migration season. Then you realize, wait, autumn migration begins in July for some birds. What are these birds? Oh, those are the females. They laid their eggs and they said, my job is done. Go on. So these were in Canada, up in northern Canada. And then they lay their eggs, they're done. So they started their migration. They're already heading south come July. The males, they are the ones incubating the eggs and caring for the young. They will start to migrate after the young fledge. And then the young need a little more time to build up muscle mass and they'll come a little bit later. So there are scenarios like most ducks. The females are caring for the young, the males are not. But a lot of the sandpipers, it's often the males who are caring for the youngs and the females are not. So the yellow legs, that would be the same thing. If in July you see yellow legs, like in Goshen like these, those are the females. All right, the males are still caring for the young. So the point is there are different types of relationships. The sandpipers, they're, that's kind of big and what they're into. And somewhere else I have, oh, okay. About 1% of bird species, I just mentioning because, females, in many species, male and females are doing about the same. In many species of birds, especially the ducks, females are doing all of the child care. About 1% of birds, it actually is the male. So a lot of the Paleognathus birds, that's like the most primitive birds with an old reptilian mouth. That's what their name means. So like rheas, cassowaries, kiwis, it's the males who are caring for the eggs, sometimes of multiple females. Penguins are like that. So like the female puts a lot of effort into laying this huge egg, and then the male keeps it on his feet in frigid Antarctic temperatures for like 2 months while the female then goes to feed. And so, that's the male doing most of the incubation and the early care there, and Jacanas from South America. Same thing here. The females have a territory. The male incubate the eggs, care for the young. So there's a couple of different ways that one can go about uh, a a relationship. Now, to be fair, when we say monogamy, polygyny, there's an asterisk there because who you're with socially, we're like, this is my couple. I'm with them all the time. That doesn't necessarily that means that that's the parent of the eggs which hatch. So there's what's known as EPCs, extra pair coupling. And our appreciation of this is starting to grow simply because we can do genetic tests on birds that weren't really available. So we just said, oh, these birds mate for life. Oh, it's a picture of monogamy. And then only after testing the offspring can you see, oh, wait, do sandhill cranes mate for life? Yep, they do. Divorce is very rare. Is extra pair coupling common? It is. All right. So, monogamy with a bit of an asterisk there. One might ask the question, is there anything that makes this more common? So just like what makes monogamy and maybe faithfulness more common, and what makes, extra pair coupling or cheating more common. So it might be the time of year. In blue-footed boobies, if there's going to be an extra pair coupling, it's in the second year of our relationship. So there's like, second year itch or whatever going on there. In Savannah sparrows and some others, but not all, there's the interesting thing, EPCs are healthier of the extra pair coupling. I'll explain why that might be in a second. And there's the sexy son hypothesis. If females prefer a certain feature, a female's male offspring will be more successful if their father had the feature. So let me explain. There are individuals and there are genes. There are genes which guide the instincts of breeding. Birds aren't like philosophically thinking, what do we want to do as a marriage pact? Let's do this. There's instinct driving them. If birds are successful, success is determined by you pass your genes on to your offspring. So, like if I'm a male duck, all right, if I have a partner, we have a nest, all right, then we have so many eggs, I've passed my genes on to the next generation. But if I leave right when the eggs hatch, leaving the females to care for them, and I now start a second nest with a second partner, I have more genes that I'm passing on to the next generation. That would be favored, right? That any genes which guide that instinct for that male would be favored. There will be more of them in the next generation. So males trying to form other partnerships will be encouraged, all right, as long as this allows them to pass down more genes. Same thing for the females, though. So let's say a female has a partner. She has laid eggs, all right? That male is going to defend the territory, help to care for the young. If there's a neighboring male who seems really healthy, and I'll talk about like colors and songs and how, we can tell whether birds are healthy and how the birds can tell whether birds are healthy. If there's a really healthy neighbor, if she mates with that neighbor and now not only has eggs from her partner, but also eggs from this sexy neighbor, all right, she's increased the likelihood that her genes get passed down, all right, because this male is bigger, healthier, feathers, longer tail feathers, and we'll get into. Or even, let's just say whatever this species think is sexy, whether it's this big crest or this red stripe or whatever it is, if that neighboring male really has that going on, any of her sons, which have this sexy male's genes, compared to her partner, who may be less sexy, she's got sexy male offspring who will then be more likely to mate. So her genes are now increasing in their frequency. So all of these behaviors are here for a reason. So in Savannah sparrows, it's actually been noted that the offspring of extra pair couplings are healthier. The female chose the really healthy looking neighbor, and it turns out her offspring by him were a little healthier than by her first partner. So there's a lot going on here. So Savannah sparrows. Okay, just a couple more things. Some females are less likely to be faithful when a nearby male has a longer tail than a mate. I'll talk about that here. So, who is their neighbor? All right, so the females are watching. All right, so if their neighbor looks like this, I'm not going to be unfaithful to that neighbor. Oh, but if their neighbor looks like this, I might be unfaithful with that one. If a female already has a sexy mate, now she's less likely to do extra pair coupling. Okay. We also see this in scenario where male care is less necessary. If the female needs the male less, then she's, is freer to now get genetic input from other males. So there have been experiments where if you give females in a nesting scenario more food, where they depend less on a male bringing them food because now they have enough. Now, the frequency of their chicks, which are not fathered by their original partner, that goes up. This also goes up in higher density populations. So if you're spread out, all right, and you don't have neighbors nearby, faithfulness increases. If you're got neighbors everywhere, then that decreases. Okay. A couple of other things going on, and we'll get back to color, but I wanted to touch on other things. So if you have a partner, you can give them gifts. That helps your relationship. So if you're an osprey, you can give your partner fish, all right? And your partner is watching, all right? The female is watching, all right, you're giving me gifts of fish. How many? And how big are these fish? And the frequency of extra pair coupling could then be determined by, I'm not impressed with the gifts that you're giving. I think I could do better, all right? So giving more gifts. Can help with this. Female terns may present males other than their mate with their cloacas as they pass by and are rewarded by gifts of fish. All right, so in birds, if you've got romantic interest, you give them gifts. In some birds, there are flowers, and females can judge like the quality of the flower that they get. So I'll talk about color in a little bit, but here's gifts. Songs mean a lot. All right, so I have this. I'm only going to play a second of it because I don't think people at home can hear as well. But here we have some acoustic monitors at various places. And you know that here are just birds making different calls. So in all of these, and you can go to my playlist, yeah, you know that sweet, 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 I'm so sweet. That's a yellow warbler. Witchetty, witchetty, witchetty. That's a yellow throat warbler. Please, please, pleased to meet you. That's a chestnut-sided warbler. You know the species. So songs can help you identify your species. All right, so that's one goal. But then songs also help, all right, because white-crowned sparrows would sing rapid songs with a broader range are considered sexier. So, like, I'm sorry, this is hard for me to get through because I'm a musician singing at open mics, and so I'm a little sensitive on this topic. But apparently, some people sing better than others. All right. So, like, if you're singing for your partners, they're not just listening for the song, Sweet, Sweet, I'm So Sweet, but how well you sing it. All right, because there's some differences, a broader range, singing more often. Females are listening, and not only do they know, like, here are the males of my species, they say, I like that singer better than I like that singer. And if they're choosing a mate, if they're choosing extra pair couplings, this plays into it. And also, this is an indicator of health. So that's a big thing that we're going to get to a lot. If you're picking a partner, all right, now very often this is females picking males, but males care about the health of their partner as well. Like, especially if you've got a long-term relationship, your reproductive success is tied into this partner. If they're unhealthy, that affects your how many genes you pass on. So a male that can sing all day, and some do, like red-eyed vireos, song sparrows, they sing all day. You only do that if you're healthy. So females can be listening. All right, they can get the repertoire, the range of sounds. They can hear how frequently they're singing. Elaborate and varied songs are considered more attractive in some species, often the first to mate. It can be shown that if birds are malnourished, their brains develop differently. They sing less. The anatomical studies where the song regions of their brain are actually smaller. All right, so songs are contributing a lot as individuals are choosing a mate. Other things can play into place like lecking. So some species just decide, let's save time and energy. And I'm sorry, I skipped something earlier because I'm going through. That was another advantage of monogamy, that dating takes energy. Like you have to look for partners, you have to like court them, you have to like all of that is energy that could be spent into eggs. So an advantage to like hooking up with someone for life or for a long term is you then don't have to do the dating next year again. All of that energy gets focused back into your kids. And that's especially important when time is critical. So in some parts of the world, it rains and rain is not common. That's the time to lay the eggs. If you've got to look for a partner, you've just wasted a window. All right, but if you've already got your long-term partner, rain, you're right on the reproduction. If you go up north, it's cold. There's a narrow window of time to lay your eggs so that the kids can develop before the next winter comes. If you have to look for a mate, you've lost time. If you get to the north with your mate, so there's more advantages to monogamy. So this also then makes it easier for females. Some birds, like turkeys, do what's called lekking. So will this male court over there and this male court over here? No, they all form a group and they all perform together. And the females, they just watch. They got a whole set of males there, all perform, and they can compare one to the other. It's like, look at the tail feathers on that one. Look at the caruncles on that one. Okay, and this is what's called lekking, where when males perform, they do so in a group. And now females get to choose. In scenarios like this, very often one or a few males might actually father most of the offspring because females might say, "I like this one," and that's uh, the preferred one. I'll be getting to color in just a second. Um, but a lot of birds, tail length matters. Like, so this is a pintail, hence their name, and they've been coming through. All right, so these are pictures from the last couple of weeks in Goshen. I love this duck, and you can tell the male ducks have these long tail feathers. So pintails, you can see why they have their name. Here, the scissor-tailed flycatcher, see why it has its name. Now, both male and females barn swallows have long tails, but males have longer. All right, there's a couple birds like that, like pheasants. Females have long tails, but males have longer. Peacocks, female tails are kind of long, but males have longer. What's the deal with that? Well, once again, that takes energy. Look at that. That's a lot of energy spent on feathers and colors of a tail. Now, the females are watching, and how did that? The only males who could make a tail that nice are healthy. All right. So if you ask a male to do something that's difficult, you can then judge how did they do? Because if a bird is malnourished, if a bird is stressed, if a bird has parasites, they're not going to make as nice a tail, as long a tail. In barn swallows, then the tails aren't going to be as symmetrical. So females, it's not always this random thing. Like, you might think of like, in human case studies, like, oh, teenagers, they might like this in a boy band or whatever, and it's just kind of this abstract thing. Here, this often is an honest indicator of health. All right. So only a healthy male could sing that often. Only a healthy male could have that long a tail. And so as you're evaluating a partner, there's that. Okay. Now, I've been talking a lot about females judging males. All right, so the females are looking at, ooh, how green is the head? Because some mallards duller heads. Testosterone is involved in making the green pigments here. So when females look at the heads, they not only know that's a mallard, they know something about the health of the mallard as they choose. So how yellow is this, etc. So I'm talking a lot about look at those tail feathers in the pheasant. Look at all those colors. The females are judging that. Do males judge females? Okay. Well, maybe in a couple of ways. And so the first two ways, um, this would be females and males can judge each other this way. In monogamous pairs, one of the things which often precedes divorce, which even though it's rare, like in bald eagles, partners rarely separate. But when they do, it is often followed by a nesting attempt being unsuccessful. So in other words, birds want to pass their genes on to the next generation. And if they're paired with someone and it doesn't work, All right, that might be a reason that they would seek other partners. It's unusual, birds that pair, they usually stay with the pairs, but divorce does happen. And so both males and females could do that. So in a way, that might be, I don't think I can reproduce with this partner for whatever reason. Um, so maybe I'll try to find another. So males and females could do that of each other. Here's an interesting bird. This is the belted kingfisher. And one member of OCAS wonderfully pointed this out to me. So thank you to Perdita if you're watching this. Um, see the belt? That's on the females. This is the only bird that I know of where the species is named for the female appearance. Right. So like the pintail, it's the male that has the pintail. Very often, if something's colorful, sometimes it's the male, or like a bald eagle, it's both the males and the females. But here it's the females which have the belt. So here's the question are the males judging the female's belt? Like I'm gonna mate with the female with the sexiest belt. Actually, no. What seems to be this is that seems to tell the males, hey, I'm a female. Don't attack me as like a rival to your territory. Instead, welcome me into it. All right, so no, here's an opportunity for males to judge females on the quality of their belt, and that's not what's going on here. These next couple things, I'm not sure. So here, females can judge males on how bright the colors are. And as I'll get to, the colors are coming from the food. So a red-winged blackbird that eats better is brighter colors. So that's easy to do with that bright male. But to be honest, look at the female. She's got some color on her. So like, I don't think that's established that males are judging the females, but there's the potential there that they could. All right, so here's a cardinal. Obviously, the female can get an idea of how well the male is eating by how red he is, but the female's red too. So females would be duller if they were eating less well. Here's an example in flamingos. So they're pink, both males and females. And not only are they pink, if you look at what they're doing, they touch their tails with their bills and then rub all over themselves. Why? Because feathers need upkeep. Feathers are important, and you got to take, just like you use hair products. They have a gland at their base of the tail that only birds have that secretes some oils. And what they do is they take their beak there, they get some of that oil, then they rub it all over their feathers. So it's good for upkeep of feathers, but there are pink pigments in the oil. So the example, the commentary that everyone uses, it's like putting on makeup before like you go out. So like I'm already pink, all right, but I'm just gonna put on a little rouge or freshen up a little bit before going out. Just touch up, make me look extra fresh. So both males and females are doing this. So the pinker the bird, the better it's eating because the pigments are coming from its diet. So apparently it is important for both males and females to be extra pink for their partners. Not only do they put it in their feathers, but they touch up, right? Here, perhaps one of the most famous examples, are the blue-footed boobies. So notice both the males and the females have blue feet, and you can tell who's who because females have better blue feet. So the male, that's the male with the paler blue. The richer blue, that's the female. Those colors come from what they eat. All right, so algae have pigments. Arthropods eat algae. The fish eat the arthropods, and the birds eat the fish. So the pigments that came are what get incorporated into the feet. So look at what they're doing. They're courting. They're saying, hey, do we want to make a couple? And look how they're doing it. They're showing each other their feet. Look at my feet. See how blue these are? Because they're only blue if I'm healthy, if I'm eating well. And notice both the males and the females are showing off for each other. So when I talk about like showing off to your partner and judging, a lot of this is on, the females are judging the males, but there's certainly at least a little of males are doing this as well. If you're going to partner with someone for life, the health of your partner certainly has, some importance to you as you consider how I might pass down my genes. There are courtship rituals that are pretty elaborate, like both of the birds are waving or whatever. I mean, bald eagles, they grab each other's talons, plunge to the ground, only to let go at the last minute. So arguably, like there's some sort of, health and fitness being tested there. Right? Obviously, if you're going to do this, hurdle towards the ground and separate at the last minute. If you're not up to it, then that might not go as well. Now, just to establish, there are different kinds of pigments in the world, colored molecules. Carotenoids are some of the pigments, and we see them in the plants. All right, so look, obviously we see them in the plants. Now, not only do they put them in their leaves, they can put them in fruits and berries, And then when animals eat that, like look at the yolks of a chicken. Why are the yolks orange? Why is fat tissue yellow? Well, because the chickens are eating plant material that have yellow and orange pigments. So animals then take these pigments and incorporate them inside. All right, so we can see that here in the eggs. All right, I could talk about human rhodopsins. But then you then have the choice. If you're making feathers, all right, you know what? I'm going to grab some of the orange pigments that I ate and put it in my feathers. I'm going to grab some of the yellow pigments that I ate and put them in my feathers. So to repeat, no bird makes yellow. So a gray bird can't say, all right, turn on the genes, make yellow. They have to eat yellow. They have to eat red. They have to eat orange. Okay. Now, if a female looks at a male bird, and the ones here I'm using, that's except for the robin, that would be pretty standard. The female is not only saying that's my species, but they're also saying how healthy is this male? Because I've seen a lot of male scarlet tanagers today, but you're redder than the others. You've been eating better. So if you're trying to pick the healthiest partner, all right, then here, like the males, this is what's called an honest indicator. This courtship feature is showing, like, look how good you can judge what kind of a parent I would be, because if I was less healthy, then I would be duller, all right, because I would not have eaten as well. All right. Robins, both males and females, all right, would then have that. So once again, I don't know that any studies have shown that, but then just as females could judge males, males could judge females on the brightness of their coloration. And there have been experiments, like, because you can take a bird's feathers and like just put chalk marks on it and make it like just look a little less bright. That affects their mating. All right. So if you muss up a bird's feathers, they are not as successful. All right. So partners are looking for that. That's a sign of how healthy they are. How much testosterone a mallard is making will affect how green its head is, etc. Okay. So, just a couple of other ways that you might attract a mate, and then we'll talk about the relationships themselves. So, I've seen great egrets my whole life. But to be honest, because I live here, I usually see them in autumn and they're done breeding. And then it took me a second to realize, wait a minute, I don't know great egrets as well as I thought. Because in breeding season, I rarely see them. Look at what they do. They make these fluffy plume feathers. That's just for breeding to impress their mates. And look around their eyes. All right, there's some greenish, but you'll see it more in a second. These are birds in the Everglades, which are breeding. You'll see it gets really green, I swear. Oh, I better find it. Somewhere, I swear. So I was like stunned. I'm like, what species am I looking at? Oh, I'm going to feel so angry if I can't find that. There's like this one little instant. All right, but no, I get better than that. I'm going to be angry. Anyway, so they get a really green patch in front of their eyes, but only during mating season. So that's not only their feathers, but their skin can do that. So there are all of these ways of attracting a partner with your colors, with your song, with the gifts. And, partners are judging, are you going to help me pass down my genes to the next generation? All of that is relevant. So what do you do with this information? Well, I said this last time. Swans are interesting because it's hard to tell males from females. You can. Males are a little bit bigger, and the males have a black knob here at the base of their bill, which is a little bit larger. But for the most part, they look about the same. And among waterfowl, that is correlated. I'm not saying it's causing it, but it's correlated. When males and females look alike, that probably means that they're going to mate for life. All right. And they won't be with someone else next season. And it probably means the males are going to help care for the young. So when I look at the swans, that's what I'm seeing. They mate for life. Do they divorce? They sometimes do if their mate dies, or if the pair does not produce young. But to the most part, these are monogamous, and they uh, will stay with their same partner year after year after year. So Canada geese, same thing. Males and females look alike, so they will tend to partner for life. All right, divorce happens, but it's a little rare. We'll go to the divorce section. Okay. Um, So if the mate dies, if they don't produce young, that may happen. But other than that, they're probably going to stay together. And the males and females look alike. All right, snow geese, it would be the same way. But you go to mallards, all right, obviously, like most ducks, there's a big difference between um, males and females. There is a two-way street here, in that males encourage, I'm sorry, females encourage male courtship. So as a male starts behaving, the female can nod her head and swimming with her head low to the water. If she's encouraging the male, she could stop doing that if she is not. Females do determine who she pairs with and leads the male to a breeding ground of her choice. And her choice is often where she hatched. So a lot of ducks are like the female saying, this is where I was born. It's a good place to raise kids. We're going there. And the male follows. But ducks have a few other things going on. One is, oh, and males, once again, there's sexier males. All right. So if you watch ducks in fall, like I've seen some male mallards get like a bright green head long before the other ones do. So it's like 3 weeks later, all the males have green heads, but one was really early in showing this. That male is more likely to be successful and have a partner. Unpaired males tend to be smaller and produce poorer plumage that may have some some blemishes, etc. And if you're unpaired early in mating season, then that may be it for you, especially in ducks because there are more male ducks in this world than female. Why is this? I don't. I've never read that anyone has a good answer, so I'll give you some of the likelihoods. One is if the females are going to raise the young all by themselves, then that's stress, and that's potentially making themselves vulnerable to predators in a way that the males don't. So there's that issue. There are forced copulations in ducks, especially mallards are famous for that, which I'll get to. Females can be injured. Females can even drown during these attempts. Being someone who teaches genetics, I'm going to say something else. In humans, there are more males conceived than females. Fact. So at conception, males outnumber females about 130 to 100. By the time of birth, male infants outnumber female infants by a number of 108 to 100. And then around teenage years, it's about a 1-to-1 ratio. So if you're doing the math, you're saying, wait, where did the males go? Well, the answer is most miscarriages are male and most infant deaths are male. Why? Because in humans and other mammals, females have two long X chromosomes, so they have two copies of each gene. And so if they've got one bad copy, then the other copy likely is a good copy, and you can get by. So a female who has one gene for hemophilia is normal. She does not have hemophilia. A female who has one gene for muscular dystrophy is normal, or color blindness or whatever. So the two chromosomes of females give them a genetic backup that helps their health. The males with one, if you've got a mistake, that's your only mistake is your only copy is a bad copy. And once again, most miscarriages are male, most infant deaths are male. In birds, it's the reverse. The males have two of the same chromosome, and the females have the two different ones. So I've never read this like this was a study published, but just teaching genetics, like more males die early in life than females because of that chromosomal difference. If females are that way in birds, that might be one of the reasons that there are more ducks. But in any case, so you have a situation where there are more males than females. So later in breeding season, if the females have partnered up. Now, most in songbirds, when there's an extra pair coupling, everything I've read, it's the females choose. Like the females will fly into another male's territory and mate with him. In ducks, there are the scenarios where males will try to force copulations on females who are not interested in this. Females may spend some of the time underwater and may drown. All right, so that may be one more aspect here. But here you can see, that's a different mating system than what the swans and the geese have. All right, and so a lot of ducks would be like that. There are specific courtships. So here you can see the males performing for the courtship here. All right, but once again, like I don't know this to be a fact. I'd love to read it. But like if you watch ringneck ducks, you test this. I always see far more males than females. If you know your ringnecks, like they hang out in groups. I always see just big groups of males. I mean, look at that. Right? See the brown females? There's one, there's two, there's three. All right. And so if you look at ducks, the male and females have different coloration, and that seems to be linked to the males will leave once the eggs hatch, and the females will raise the young all by themselves. And also, while they are called monogamous, what that means is they will be seasonally monogamous this season. They have a partner that they're, quote, faithful to this year, but next year they'll be with someone else. So, there's different types of monogamy. A lot of birds practice seasonal monogamy, where they form a pair for one breeding cycle. Maybe not others. Okay. So start to wind down. I've just got I hit a lot of the major points, but here's just, this is a juvenile merlin eating, but its two parents are nearby. Right, to get this bird to grow to adult size in 2 months, that takes double effort of individuals hunting. So something like that would favor, partners which stay together. A couple other things. Woodpeckers not only make holes for to find insects, but they also do something known as drumming, and they'll start doing it any week now, where they just start slamming their head against. Yeah, so you're hearing some drumming. That's to announce their territory and to try to attract mates. So females may drum a little bit, but males just start slamming their skulls against wood as a way of a female. And once again, if a male does that with gusto, like continually, like you don't slam your head against something hard unless you're healthy. So like females are getting some input into their prospective partners here. Then there are just stories. Let me end with two stories and then ask if there are any questions. There are as many stories as there are species of birds. So let me just do two last ones. Blue-headed vireos are noted that males don't make as much testosterone as typical vireos do. They also provide much more care for the young, even to the point where they develop a brood patch. Now, if you don't know what a brood patch is, if a female bird, she's almost always a female, wants to keep the eggs, very often she will like pluck out feathers on her chest to line the nest. But also now she's got warm, bare skin that she can put over the eggs, help to keep them warm, just with that contact. Some birds pluck out their feathers, but some it's actually hormonal. Well, they actually shed feathers, that they actually just lose feathers over an area of their chest during breeding season. These males do that. All right. So these males, their hormone levels are different from what one typically observes in related vireos. And this then has an effect on how they parent. All right. Fascinating story there. All right. Here's frigate birds doing something else. Right. So frigate birds just absolutely wonderful to watch. Here's another example of where all the males are going to gather in one area and show off. And the females now get to show. You see the males have this big red patch called a gular that they're showing off. And females are flying over and they'll decide whether or not to land in the vicinity of this male or not. All right. But once again, that takes some work to produce those bright red pigments. So the females can then judge. One last thing, I apologize as I'm doing this, this thing just occurred to me. Some of you, I like to talk about white-throated sparrows. So this will be the last story. Some people have asked, is this a species that has 4 genders? Well, in the typical sense of gender, no. But if you were to look, you would see there are some females that have white stripes, some females that have tan stripes, some males that have white stripes, some males that have tan stripes. And the way that they mate is white striped females will almost always mate only with tan striped males, never with white striped males. And white-striped males will almost always mate with tan-striped females. Not only do they look different, they act different. The white-striped ones, they're aggressive, both males and females. So what I'm going to do, I've read two descriptions of this, and I'll give you both. The temptation is to anthropomorphize, like to use our thoughts on relationships or whatever to, like, this is what I think I'm seeing in the birds. And, and to some extent, that's not fair. Someone in the chat has a comment. So good afternoon. We got that one. Okay. Men's neckties with small repetitive patterns are called, oh, foul art. Really? Foul art. I never knew that. Yeah, it's so thanks, Lark. All right, so I shouldn't go here, but like it's just so tempting to relate this to humans. So like in bird love, they start talking about like long tail feathers being like, oh, like really expensive, really inconvenient, but maybe a sign of like overall health. And like the question was after that, like sports cars or racing boats or something, So the temptation is just to compare this to you. But anyway, getting back to here, why are they doing that? Well, here's two explanations. One is if white-striped individuals, male and female, are more aggressive. The aggressive ones will be good at defending the nest, but maybe not for caring for the young. The more aggressive you are, the less you tend to worry about the young ones. So if a white-striped male is mated with a tan-striped female, he's going to defend the area, but not going to help with the kids. But that's okay. She does all the child care, and that works. The kids are taken care of. But in this system, where the white striped female is with the tan striped male, they both defend the nest and they both take care of the kids. So here's one species of birds, but by saying that only opposites are really attracting, that you've set up a scenario where the kids are going to be okay either way. Fascinating. The other way that I've heard this explained, and once again, I don't want to speak for the birds, is that let me get this right. Okay, everyone likes the tan striped males, which are less aggressive, are going to help with their kids. And because the white striped females are more aggressive, they can say, I want a tan striped male. They're more aggressive. They get the tan striped male, leaving the tan striped females to get stuck with the white striped males. So I don't know. We're anthropomorphizing, and I don't claim to have wisdom that others don't. So when we look out at the natural world, there's just so much color. There's just so much song. And so much of it is tied to sex. Right? These birds are trying to figure out what species they are because there's all these other species. You want to know whose species is yours. But then also, if you're going to start having color patterns or you're going to start making courtship songs, is there something about this color that would make this one a better parent to help me spread my genes than that parent? Is there something about this one song that indicates health? Is there something about this one's tail feathers, etc.? And so, I mean, if you think of just the beauty of the natural world, if there was only asexual reproduction, we wouldn't see most of this. We wouldn't hear the songs. We wouldn't have the different coloration patterns. And so not only is this enriching our world, but this is the season to see it. All right, because one, our birds are coming back. So you'll get to see birds that you haven't seen since last August because they flew south when it started getting cold. So we get to see them. Oh, and we get to see Canada's birds, even though they don't live here all summer. They're going to spend their time in Canada. We get to see them as they pass through. So their colors, their patterns, we get to see. And third, it's mating season. So if birds are going to pick a time of the year to look pretty, it is now. This is when they are at their brightest. This is when they're going to sing their songs. It is far easier to see a bright colored bird that's at the top of the tree making as much noise as it possibly can than an autumn bird, which is duller colored and being unobtrusive because mating's over and it's not trying to attract anyone. So if you're going to get out and enjoy this wonderful area where we live, spring is really the season to do it. I wish you nothing but luck as you go hiking and bird watching and nature watching in our area. And just remind you, we have all of those great organizations I mentioned at the beginning. If you were to go to their websites, you'll see their talks and their walks, et cetera. And if, by all means, go by yourself. But if, you would benefit from, let's, have a guided walk. There's certainly plenty of those coming. So I'll pause and then ask if anybody has any questions. Yeah. EPCs, yep, extra pair coupling.
The next or raising, there's a lot of
Yeah,
really
so right. So right, and so after a while, I'm just going to have to say one should do a study on one species because, like, to speak in general. So in some species, males are really worried about this, and males will destroy eggs or kill infants that look suspect. Like if, as a way of discouraging extra pair coupling, if the male thinks that that has happened, then trying to discourage it by killing the eggs or the infants. So. So that is a possibility. Another possibility, though, and this is like with wood ducks, because I'm not a big fan that female wood ducks will lay their eggs in the nest of other females, so that those females then raise eggs that aren't their own. Like, as a parent, like just I'm anthropomorphizing, but I'm like, that's not cool. But if birds are returning to where they hatched, then the females that go to a specific lake, they might be sisters or aunt and niece, etc. So you're not caring for your kids, but maybe you're caring for your sister's kids or your niece's kids or whatever. So when you start looking at like what favors my genes getting passed down, me helping my sister's kids succeed, that's helping some of my genes succeed as well. Point is, like, it could be more complicated in some scenarios.
not breathing and having.
Oh, so that could happen. That's a great question. I don't know that there's that type of selection. And I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm just making this up on the fly. But because like for example, I've lived in places where like it's really small towns, and in a small town, like you're related to like everybody. So that's an issue. No, just I mean, just um, so then like how closely are you related to some birds? Like they can fly thousands of miles. All right. And so I think just then the potential of not being surrounded by like your closest of relatives. I think in birds which are migrating thousands of miles, I don't know that that's a big thing, and I would guess that that might be a factor. Yeah.
This is unrelated to the, like, why red-winged blackbirds being in the backyard?
Ooh.
I have red-winged blackbirds in my backyard, and I like don't understand why. I mean, they're there, they're comfortable, they're hanging out with all the other birds, and it
I
makes no sense to me. It's not really the appropriate place for them to be.
I would argue, so I agree with you, but also a lot of what they would eat, when you look at like insects and seeds and plant material, there's stuff left over from last winter. Insects are starting to come out. But I don't think like we're at the full fledged of that. So they might be like, I'll eat anything I can. So like in winter, birds like robins, all right, they would prefer to eat worms. But if the worms aren't available, they'll then go to other stuff. I would guess that there's some of that like the insects aren't fully enclosed yet. Good question. Anybody else? Yeah, and just if people are packing up, I see that you are. I am almost at the end of the Bashakil and OCAS calendars, but if anyone has not gotten a calendar, I do see a couple faces I might not have seen before. If you said like, oh, might there be calendars with like local wildlife? There are, so feel free to take one. And for those of you at home, for those of you here, thank you so very much for coming. It was wonderful to see you. I hope you have a great nature watching experience. But yes, you had a question. You did, yeah.
Definitely.
Uh-huh. Yes. Well, so it will go to Canada. I did have a Merlin picture here that that was that was Montreal from last summer, and then they will migrate south of here. So they breed up north, they winter down south, and they pass through here.
Probably been there.
Uh-huh. So birds, like I would never, as a scientist, say this will 100% always happen. My bet would be there will come a day where your Merlin is gone, and it's just decided. Like I flew up from, I don't know, like Georgia, and if I flew from Georgia, I'd be like I'm taking a week or two, and I'm just going to feed up or whatever, and then before making the next leg of my journey, especially if it goes because it was 24 degrees Saturday morning. So like a bird might be saying like, I think I'm ready to go to Canada, and you get 24 degrees here, and maybe the bird says, I think I'm going to stay. And then there might be triggers where I'm waiting for like this type of temperature before I make the next leg. That's my guess. If you had the Merlin nest, that would be wonderful news. I'd love to hear about. I'd love to hear about that. So keep us posted.
So for that,
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Merlins are great birds. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's great. Anybody else? Anyone at home?
Volunteers at the Bosch Hill.
For the Eagle Watch, I apologize. I do a whole bunch. So there's the Amphibian Watch. There's the Eagle.
Yeah,
Patri-
Eagle.
we did great with volunteers.
you know when they're releasing?
I actually have yet to sign up for my because I tend to fill in when there's holes. I've asked the same question. So it will be coming out very soon.
Listen, you know, I will, with the first,
Just gonna stop for you.
probably.
I do. So hold on. So I'm just